Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Diana Sanchez, and I'm with the TCU Alumni Association. I'm here with Hallie Crawford. She's a certified career coach and the founder of Create Your Own Career Path. I'm so excited to have you all join us, but we're going to give everyone a couple of minutes to get logged in before we get started with our special guest, Hallie Crawford, who will talk to us about what to do after being laid off. So a couple minutes and then we'll get started.
Okay, sounds good. Oh, and Diana, so I don't know if I can chat with everybody. I put the link to get the slides in there just so people don't feel like they have to frantically write everything down. So I don't know if you could share it with everybody when it comes time, that'd be great.
I can do that.
Because sometimes the settings are where I can and sometimes not, and I don't want to mess something up and then leave by accident.
Yeah, no worries.
Which did happen to me once. That was bad. So I'm very careful now. All right. Thank you all for being here with us today. Appreciate it.
I think we'll go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, thank you for joining us. My name is Diana Sanchez, and I'm with the TCU Alumni Association. I'm here with Hallie Crawford, a certified career coach and founder of Create Your Career Path. So excited to have you all join us. Hallie, take it away.
Thank you. Thanks, Diana. And thanks everybody for being here today, especially on what has been a hectic week, I know, with the election and all of that. Um, so we really appreciate your time. And the reason why this is such a big deal for people getting laid off, understandably, if this has happened to you or if you're worried about it, is because it can feel like such a personal situation, even if it's not. So we're here today to talk about being laid off and laid off now, what do I do? And we're going to be covering not just the practical, tactical action steps that we want you to take in order to move forward with a new job search, but also the emotional element of being laid off too. So just by way of quick introduction, very proudly have been a part of the TCU network for a long time. It's been several years. I'm not sure how long. I was just joking. I need to come visit them. I'm a certified career coach. My company is based in Atlanta, Georgia, where I am. We have coaches in different parts of the country. I've been coaching and training since 2002, and I have an undergraduate degree from Vanderbilt University and a master's degree from the University of Illinois. And the advice we're going to give you today is advice that we give to all of our clients to help them deal as effectively as they possibly can with a layoff, which can be very, very difficult. We're going to give you a lot of advice and information during the course of our time today. And so that you don't get overwhelmed with things, what I would suggest is write down or take note of one or two things that make the most sense for you and your situation, your personality type, what resonates the most for you as an action step to take away in the next week. And then as a reminder, you will get the recording of today. And FYI, too, in the webinar chat, there is a link to grab the slides as well. So you can pick up after that one action step going forward. So let's go ahead and dive in. Layoffs are overwhelming for a ton of different reasons. And so please know that you're not alone if you're experiencing any of these situations. They make people anxious, understandably. Sometimes people are worried about, did I get the right or enough severance? There's an emotional toll that comes with it because it's hard not to take it personally. And what we find is that a lot of people, their job is either their whole identity or it's a big part of their identity. And so when you take that away, it can feel like someone's pulling the rug out from under you in a lot of different ways. Other people will tell us one of their challenges, understandably, they don't know how to use their time wisely in a job search. In some cases, our clients haven't conducted a job search in years, and they're like, oh, I'm starting from scratch. And so the first thing we want you to know, and actually we're going to start right out of the box with our first poll and make sure you all are awake, haha, um, is your greatest concern about being laid off. Ooh, and actually, yeah, let's do the greatest concern about job searching. Okay. And then we'll do these different ones kind of as we go today. Because all of these different elements we are going to focus on as we discuss each piece. And the other thing I want you to know is that job searching and dealing with a layoff is as much of a mental game as like being an athlete in the Olympics, right? We all know how we feel when we're confident, we're proactive, we feel good, like going into a job interview, let's say, or a networking event, etc., versus when we don't feel as good. So part of what we are going to talk about today is this emotional, like how you can get yourself into a better mindset in order to find that next job, the right job for you, and not just taking whatever comes your way. Although I know sometimes we need to do that in order to pay the bills, but also to be more confident and proactive in your search because your attitude affects that enormously. So if you could fill out this first poll for us, that would be fantastic. What's your greatest concern? Is it about networking? Is it about materials? Other things? All of these are completely normal and things we hear from our clients. And we'll give you a moment to fill these out. And it's a good idea while you're completing this, is to write down too what you think is your biggest obstacle to taking the next step after being laid off. Whether it's I'm lacking confidence at this point, whether it's I'm still depressed about being laid off in the first place, or something else. It's a really good idea to understand what your emotional kind of state is to identify what those um, issues or challenges might be that you need to overcome in order to move past it. So if we could go ahead and show our results, that would be great because I'd love to see these. Okay, this makes perfect sense to me. If you take a look at our results, the majority of people are saying, how do I get in front of hiring managers? Makes perfect sense. Um, the next set is not knowing how to network, updating my materials, and then other is that 11% too. So we'll talk today. We'll give you some advice and tips about how to get in front of hiring managers in the content that we have in terms of search engine optimizing your profile and all this other good stuff too. And we want to talk about this emotional toll here first as well. So the good news is that I do think like the economy kind of shrinks a little bit naturally and just people get a little bit stressed during an election year leading up to the election. And I don't want to say regardless of who wins, but almost regardless, people at least are like, okay, now it's done. Now I know what I'm dealing with. They look forward and things start to open up again. Okay. So we want you as much as possible with a prospective layoff, or if you've already been laid off, trying to say to yourself and ask yourself, okay, what's the opportunity for me here? Is it an opportunity for me to get a better job than I had before? Is it an opportunity to advance, move up, negotiate for a higher salary? Try to think in terms of that as much as you possibly can to get in that more positive mindset. So let's take a look at our agenda. We want you to talk about, or we're going to discuss the 5 steps we want you to work through. Number 1 is processing your emotions first, because that's going to get you in the right mindset for the next steps you need to take. Dealing with severance negotiations as appropriate if you're still in the throes of that a little bit. Getting your house in order, resume, LinkedIn, etc. Activating your network as soon as possible, and then getting and asking for, or I should say, asking and getting support along the way. As a quick reminder, if anyone has just joined us, you will get a copy of the slides, or I'm sorry, you will get a copy of the recording automatically. You can get a copy of our slides by going into the chat box. There's a link there for you to download them. It's also listed on this slide here as well. So recording is going to be automatic. Ask for the slides this way. We will have time for Q&A at the end today. Please feel free at any point to put in the chat box or Q&A any questions that you have. And I would love it if you also would share any resources or things that you have done in order to navigate a layoff effectively for you, because I'd love for us to learn from each other. All right, so let's talk about step number one. And I know this may seem like, okay, why are we talking about this? This is so important because you know how you feel and how different, I should say, your action steps are and how much more effective we are or you are when you feel really good and confident versus when you don't. So we were talking with a client, one of our coaches was yesterday, and for example, he's kind of wishy-washy on his search. I mean, he does want a new job, but we're not getting the sense from him that he is as committed as he could be. And when we were talking with him about this, he does kind of and I hate to say it, some of the bare minimum. Like, I apply for a job, and yes, maybe I am asking someone to connect me with someone else. But when that other person through networking doesn't respond to him, he doesn't follow up and do anything about it. This is the difference between feeling good and assertive and confident, like you have value to provide, versus, oh, well, I'm just going to do this and kind of that's it. So first of all, taking a look at this slide, number one, it's okay to grieve. There's a loss here. And honestly, even if you didn't like your job that much, there's still a loss there. So take the time to journal about it, talk with a supportive friend, take a walk in nature, like give yourself however much time you may need or not to process what your emotions are. A lot of people are mad when they get laid off. And you got to get through that too, because you can't go into new interviews mad at your previous employer. Number two is to not take it personally. Remind yourself that for whatever reason, this was budget cuts or whatever's going on in your industry. Now, in some cases, for people, it could be due to your performance. And if that's the case, what you need to do is not, focus on, okay, that was terrible and I'm horrible, but say, what am I going to do differently next time? How can I improve? So the things that we would recommend you at least take a little bit of time to do are journal about how you're feeling about the layoff and where you might have some sticking points that you need to work on. Talking regularly with supportive people in your life who are positive and optimistic and help you feel better is really important. Give yourself that time and space to process, decide from your previous job who you'd like to stay in touch with because there is that loss. And there may be people that you do want to keep in your friend group or, stay connected with. But make sure that you think about this and give yourself a little bit of time here. Remind yourself too from this next slide that your job is not your sole identity. Do things to maintain your confidence over time and to get it up to par for your job search, whether it's writing down affirmations and putting them on your bathroom mirror. It could be that you review your accomplishments for the past 5 years as you're updating your resume and LinkedIn to remind yourself of all the great things that you've done. Interview and ask other people who know you well about your strengths and your value to help boost your confidence, but also help you understand your brand and write up your elevator speech that you can use to try to get in front of hiring managers on LinkedIn, something catchy that you send them in a message. Ask for a reference or recommendations from the place of your previous employment as appropriate on LinkedIn. Do that when it's fresh so that they're more likely to do it soon. And what we want you to do too is it's okay to print those out and read them sometimes when you need a confidence boost. We've had other clients tell us that they'll create a music playlist for their search. They'll exercise, they'll get out in nature. Just make sure that you're doing something on a regular basis to work through any emotions you have about being laid off that may be holding you back, and also doing certain things that will put you into a positive mindset. Really, really important. Okay. Make sure that you have a plan and a schedule for your day and your week for your job search. And as part of that plan, you do things regularly to get support, to take care of yourself, ask for help when you need it. Making sure that you're putting in time in your daily and weekly schedule for your job search for networking and just getting out of the house sometimes, because sometimes when we've been laid off and we get bummed out, we tend to kind of go into our shell a little bit more and we just need to get out of the house. Make sure that when you're talking with new people, especially during interviews and informational interviews and networking, that you don't bash your former employer. Avoid any negative Nellies in your life. Push aside negative thoughts that are related to being laid off, like, well, I don't know what I'm doing, or whatever it is. Change that and write some affirmations in order to shift your thinking. And make sure that you surround yourself with positive influences and positive people during this time, especially. This is a chance for you to expand and reach out to and leverage your network for support as well, to kind of get back on LinkedIn and see what other people are doing on LinkedIn to network and stay positive so that, again, you don't feel so alone in this situation, which can happen to people so often. You need to put yourself out there as much as you can, not just for networking purposes so that you get a job sooner, but also so that you don't feel like you're alone. And as part of this and processing the emotions, another thing that you can do here to focus on the positive and forward action in the future versus the past is to take a few minutes, even if you feel like you know your career direction and the next type of job that you want to get and apply for. Take a few minutes anyway to print out our ideal career model and write about your ideal job for you so that you're really clear and focused on what you want to target next, the type of work environment that you want to be in, how you want to leverage your strengths next in a new position, what would be really fulfilling and rewarding for you. How do you want to leverage your experience in your education? And making sure that you're finding a new job with the right work environment that fits your personality type and also covers your basis for compensation. Filling this out can help you focus on the vision for you for the future, make you feel more motivated and excited, and be less about kind of dwelling on the past and the layoff, if you will. This is a model, just by the way, that we use with all of our clients, and I developed it when I first started coaching in 2002 in order to help people really get clear on their career direction and the right job for them to target, but also it can help you understand your brand as well, which can help sell you for prospective employers. And we'll talk about that more as we go. Step number 2, and we talked about this in the agenda, and this will just be one quick slide here. But with your severance negotiations, if you're concerned about a layoff or if you're in the throes of dealing with this right now, it's really important not to just kind of accept whatever they take without fully understanding what they're offering. So make sure that you ask any questions along the way to ensure you know what's next for you, and ask questions to find out if you can negotiate anything. Can you get your health coverage extended for an extra month or two, for example? Stock options pay out maybe partially or sooner than you would have otherwise. Increased severance pay, if that's something that they're offering you. Being vested now in your retirement or partially so. Can you extend your layoff time frame, for example? Could you say, or would they be willing to say that you still work there for just a few more weeks so that you can keep that on your resume as present? Is it possible, for example, that you could freelance for them for a little while or stay on a little bit longer while they find someone new, or move to like a consulting role for them until you find something new? So there's lots of different things that you could at least ask the question about. This doesn't mean they're going to say yes necessarily. And different organizations are going to be different about this depending on what their rules are. But it's at least worth asking the question. And if anyone has other ideas about what you might be able to negotiate during severance, please put those in the chat because I would love to hear them to share and help each other as well. So at least with your severance, try to negotiate some of it. And if nothing else, just ask the questions because as we all know, if you don't, the answer is automatically no there. All right, let's look at step number 3. And this is to work on updating your resume, your LinkedIn, and writing your elevator speech for yourself too. So, part of working on your materials in a good way when you're working on brushing things off to improve your job search and get ready for it is it can actually be a confidence boost, especially when you get some help from this, because other people can help point out to you, look, these are actually a really unique combination of strengths and skill set that you have that you may not fully realize because we tend to discount what comes naturally to us. So while you're updating your materials, focus also on having that boost your confidence and writing down and thinking about all of your accomplishments as well and getting help from someone else, whether it's a coach like us or someone else, friend and family member, etc., can help enormously because it'll help you pull out things for your brand as well. So, identifying your ideal job, the reason why we bring this up again, just for a second here with the model, is because you want to tailor all of your materials to the job that you really want to have. And make sure that you're incorporating all of these different elements. And what I mean by this is you want to make sure that you don't just have your past experience and education that's relevant to the jobs you're going for, but that you also have some of your soft skills and strengths listed there too. Some of your personality traits that you bring to the table that can be helpful for that next employer. And the rest of it is going to help you identify and get really targeted on the types of jobs that you want to apply to. The ideal career model can help you brainstorm alternative job titles and maybe even industries that you might want to target as well. And also help you clarify and narrow down your brand a little bit more too. So after you've worked on the emotional element of kind of getting into a good or better headspace, the obvious thing that you need to do next is tailoring your resume and your LinkedIn profile. Your cover letter, your resume, and your profile should all represent and communicate your brand. And you'll see what I mean by that in the next couple of slides. So a couple of things that you want to consider with your resume are things like making sure it has the right formatting to get past the scanning systems, but also making it easy for the human eye to scan and read quickly too. Make sure that all the content and the font, the formatting, etc., is consistent, that you use enough white space, that it's again easy to read and doesn't look overwhelming. When you create a header on your resume, you want to use that same header on your cover letter so that things match. Have it be the same. On your resume, just like you have on your About section or in your About section on your LinkedIn profile, we want you to have a summary statement at the top that brands you and sells you. Make sure that with your bullet points on your resume and on your LinkedIn profile, which is number 1, 2, 3, 4 on this list here on this slide, is you're mentioning marketable results every single time. That your bullet points are very results oriented, not just task oriented. Okay. You want to speak about your accomplishments as much as you possibly can. And with both your resume and your LinkedIn profile, include keywords that would get picked up by the scanning systems. And this is where you're search engine optimizing SEO your materials. And this is both for your LinkedIn and your resume. You want to make sure that you have the right keywords in there so that for your resume, for example, it gets past the scanners and into the hands of the right person. And for LinkedIn, when someone is trying to find someone like you on LinkedIn to ask you to come in for an interview, for example, that they'll find your profile and that you get past those scanners as well. There's some great resources listed on this slide that can help you with all of this. Remember, you can get a copy of the slides by clicking on the link that's in the chat box, just FYI. Now, with your resume, it's really important to create a compelling summary at the top. And if you look at this example, this is what we mean by branding yourself effectively, as well as having a good summary statement. So this guy is very well branded because when you look at his heading up here, you know exactly who he is, what he brings to the table. He's a marketing and communication strategist, and he's really good at these three areas. Then he's got a really nice, robust summary statement. Now, there's two ways to create your summary statement. It can be like this, where it's broken out into specific transferable skills that would relate to the next job that you're applying to, or it can be in paragraph format. Okay. But we want you to have a summary regardless of the job that you're in or looking for at the top, because this is what people are going to read first. This is a place where you want to have the right keywords, and this is going to get the person to continue reading your resume or not. It needs to be compelling and it needs to brand you effectively. This can be somewhat similar to your About section on your LinkedIn profile. However, we like for your LinkedIn About section to be just a little bit longer than this one, have some key skills in that as well, and for you to use first person a little bit on LinkedIn too, which is not what you do on your resume. You keep that in third person. Okay. We've got some really good templates that are for sale on our website. You can just email me at admin@createyourcareerpath.com. I'm happy to share the link with you there. Or if you go to our website, you can see it under resume and LinkedIn services. But bottom line these days, everybody, resumes look fancy. People will use shading. In some cases, they'll use some graphics, but have at least some color on your resume in order to help it stand out from the crowd. If you're in a more formal, kind of old school type of industry, you can go with a little bit less of these things, but we like for the majority of our clients to use one of the templates that we have because number one, they look good and contemporary, and number two, the way they are formatted gets people past the scanners. The things that you have to pay attention to or avoid in order to make sure that your resume will get past the scanners are things like too many font styles where it looks kind of like a circus, inconsistent layout. You want to make sure that your margins are the right size and amount. You also want to make sure that you do not have anything underlined on your resume and no tables or columns on there either, because that can trip up the scanning systems. So again, it's nice if you can have a resume that looks really good like ours do, but also gets you past the scanning system so you can only have one version of it and don't have to worry about creating multiple versions. Now, with your resume, and this is different from LinkedIn because LinkedIn forces you to have a chronological listing, obviously, of your experience. But with your employment history on your resume, just FYI, there's three ways to list it. Number one is the most common listed on this slide. This is the chronological, which is the most recent job first and is usually best for people who have been in the same type of job or similar industry and moved up, kind of steady growth and advancements over time. There's also the type of resume that is a functional resume. This is where people will lay things out according to function, skills that they have that are relevant for the next job, and functions. If you are considering for any reason a functional resume, we would recommend doing a hybrid, which is a hybrid of chronological and functional versus just a strictly functional resume, because employers and recruiters sometimes balk at those. We'll talk about what we mean in just a moment. The standard and the easiest way to go, most common way to go, is the chronological. But if you are trying to make a shift into something new or a little bit different than what you've been doing, we would recommend the hybrid version. And again, we'll show you that in just a moment. So a couple of things with your employment history and tips there related to this is making sure that with all of your bullet points and with your sentences in different sections, like your summary at the top, make sure that you're using really active verbs. If you need a little bit of help with wording, you can use AI or ChatGPT to help you with this. We do not recommend that you use those tools to start your resume from scratch. or your LinkedIn from scratch, because employers and recruiters can tell, and they don't like it if it's completely just AI driven, but you can get ideas from it. Okay. So those active verbs are going to be really important. The second item on in the middle of the slide here is to select the biggest, like 5 to 7 most important 5 to 7 accomplishments that best highlight the experience and successes that you have had that would be relevant to the job that you're applying to. Don't include things on your resume that are not going to be relevant to the job. Okay. And we've got a couple of good questions here, and I'll answer those in just a moment. So make sure that you keep your resume and LinkedIn very tailored to the type of job you're going for. Include measurable results, like we just said. And if you have a gap because of a layoff, put in there what you've been doing during that time. Don't leave it blank if, for example, you've been volunteering or taking a class or whatever it is. And we highly recommend you do something like that so you can fill that gap and it's not just kind of empty, so to speak. So great question, which piggybacks on AI, which we were just talking about. So what role does AI play in today's search, positive or negative? So it's positive in the sense that it can help you enhance your language. It can help you understand whether your resume is tailored to a job that you're applying to. So you can match it up with a job description, and that can be positive as well. It can be negative if you rely too heavily on it. So don't use it to just write every single thing for you. Use it as a tool to help you enhance what you've already written or give you ideas of what you could write, but you adjust it based on your language, how you would say something. Okay. Hopefully that answers as a starting point. Another question is sending your LinkedIn profile the equivalent of sending a resume? No, it is not. It's a really good question. And maybe later in the future, LinkedIn will take the place of resumes. I'm not sure, honestly, when and if that will happen. But no, if someone asks you to apply for a job, you want to be sending in your resume. You can include your LinkedIn profile on your resume at the top there, and we want you to do that. But don't just send only your LinkedIn profile and that's it. That's not what they're asking for and not what they're typically expecting. Unless for some reason someone does just ask for your LinkedIn profile, don't default to that. As part of your LinkedIn and revising it, a couple of things that you can do and want to make sure you're paying attention to. So let's start on the left-hand side. Your summary at the top, we do want you to have a couple of sentences in there, sorry, that are first person so that you're speaking to the reader a little bit more. LinkedIn is for that purpose, and we want you to use it that way versus on your resume, just third person. Professional photo, measurable results, have a branded banner as well. And I believe in our next couple of slides, we'll show you what we mean by there. This is becoming more of the norm and the standard for people. And it starts to look weird, honestly, if you don't have one versus how it was several years ago. Make sure that you're working on getting recommendations from people on LinkedIn, because that is content that you can use to get people's attention and get the attention of hiring managers in some cases on LinkedIn if you're reaching out to them to message them. Your LinkedIn needs to have keywords in there too. We're in the middle of the slide now. Make sure that your settings are all the way you want them to be, that you want to be viewed by employers and recruiters, etc. And we highly recommend using a Google search or also a LinkedIn search to find local recruiters in your area that may be able to help you with placement. And finally, absolutely, and this is again where you can use AI too, have a friend or family member or a coach like us read through your resume and LinkedIn profile to make sure that everything sounds okay. You can use AI for this, like we said, but there's nothing like also having a human read through things, because AI is not always going to catch something that may sound a little bit weird or off that someone else reading it for you can help you with. Now, I do want to talk about cover letters for just a second, because a lot of people will ask us, do they matter these days? And I'll be honest with you, it's kind of 50-50. A lot of employers are not going to ask for it. But if they either ask for it, you want to provide it, or if they give you an opportunity to upload or provide any other content or materials for your candidacy, we do want you to submit a cover letter because it's another opportunity for you to sell yourself. So we always like for our clients to create a cover letter no matter what, because even if the majority, let's say, of the jobs they're applying to do not ask for them, it's ready to go content that you can use to get an informational interview with someone, to get in front of a recruiter or hiring manager, because you've created that content and you have it there. You can plug and play it in different ways. Inside of your cover letter, again, needs to be easy to read, short and sweet. You want to tailor it to each position. We like for people to have bullet points in their cover letter so that it can be easily scanned as well. And in your cover letter, you can also include testimonials and recommendations from LinkedIn, again, in order to help you stand out from the crowd. Another item that we want people to attend to when they've been laid off and are preparing for their job search is to actually think about and write up an elevator speech. And a lot of people forget this. And so this is why I bring it up today, because normally people are like, resume, LinkedIn, okay, great, I'm going to go do my job search. But if you're talking with people and networking and you're not demonstrating your value proposition to them right away up front, they're going to be less likely to assist you in your search in the long run. So you want to make sure you actually take a couple minutes to write something. You can get ideas from AI here as well, but you want to massage them and change them, because if everyone else in the world, let's say, um, is using AI to craft the elevator speech, you're going to get the same thing that they do. So write up who you are, and I'll give you an example on the next slide, just by the way, what your value proposition is, what results you deliver for whom, and also end it with what type of job you're looking for. Here's an example for an environmental engineering consultant on this next slide. And if you take a look at this, he tells you, or he would say at the beginning, I'm an environmental engineering consultant. I help government agencies, etc. His value proposition is in here. And at the end, he's letting people know clearly what type of position and industry and type of job or organization he's looking for. Let's look at step number 4, and this is activating your network as soon as humanly possible and leveraging it as much as possible. Because even though we've got all of these computer and technology tools out there, it's still who you know in terms of finding a new job. People tend to find jobs 60 to 70% typically through networking. So activating your network is really important. So number 1, this is through LinkedIn, expanding your network to that magic number of 500 that LinkedIn wants you to have. And then they give you all of these other fancy tools once you do that. We want you to leverage your TCU alumni group, the Alumni Association, and the resources that they provide, as well as LinkedIn groups through TCU as well. Some people might use Facebook, some people might use meetup.com to find networking groups in their area. Industry-specific associations are fair game to do networking in and attend some of their meetings, and social groups might be relevant for you as well. So we'd love to launch our LinkedIn poll here. If we've got that pulled up, Diana, do you feel you know how to leverage LinkedIn effectively? And while we're completing this poll, we've got a question that came through the Q&A box as well. So one person is asking, and thanks for your question, I've had a few interviews with the hiring managers. When the interview asked whether I have questions, I typically ask 2 or 3 questions. Can you give some ideas what questions are most appropriate to ask the interview? So this is a great question, or interviewer, sorry. This is a great question. Some of the things that you want to ask them is, excuse me, can you tell me a little bit more about what the culture is like here, how this organization, what the values are and how people work together effectively? What is an ideal type of person or candidate who best succeeds here? What are the top 5 strengths that are going to be most important in this role? And another good question can be something like, can you tell me what a typical day is like within this role? That's another good one too. So let's take a look at what our results are from leveraging LinkedIn effectively. Ooh, and it looks like we've got kind of 50-50 here. So 53% are saying no, which that's okay. That's part of why you're here. By the way, we have a really good and affordable LinkedIn guide that is really helpful for people and they love it. It's $20. I'm going to put a couple of things here. If you'd like more information on our LinkedIn guide, you can go to our website and under resume and LinkedIn services, it's listed there at the bottom, or you can email me and I'd be happy to share the link with you. And I'll put that in here too. So for those of you who feel like you need help with LinkedIn, especially, it gives you tips and tricks and tools to get in front of hiring managers and find people who are hiring who may not be like advertising and broadcasting it as much. And for those of you who feel like you do, kudos to you, that 40%, 47%, excuse me, that's awesome. I definitely would, just by the way, join a couple of LinkedIn groups. And if you're already in some LinkedIn groups, start to poke around in those a little bit. Start to participate a little bit in there. And if nothing else, notice the people that do participate in those groups a little bit more frequently, because those are people that you want to reach out to try to maybe connect with, because they are more likely, if they're already participating in a group like this, they're more likely to be willing to give you some time and do this kind of networking thing with you, okay? I would set a goal for yourself with networking of connecting with a certain number of new people every single week and setting up a certain number of informational meetings or calls with people to put yourself out there, practice your interview skills just a little bit, but also to get a sense of advice that they might have for your search, how to put your best foot forward in your search. Would they have suggestions about keywords for your resume and LinkedIn? Have they ever worked with any recruiters that they might suggest that they liked? With your informational interviews as part of your networking efforts, be strategic about what you're going to ask them in order to make sure it's effective. Always ask them if you can help them in any way at the end. And in some cases on LinkedIn, you can try to connect with hiring managers and recruiters. Know that sometimes they don't want people to connect with them because they're busy and they're trying to kind of have you go through the normal channels of applying for a job. But it's worth trying to reach out to and connect with them because you never know what they might say or if they will actually connect with you. And it's possible that they might. With informational interviews, the way that it's defined and as using it as part of your networking efforts is it's basically an informational meeting one-on-one with someone who works in an industry that you would like to work in, whether it's your current industry or something new, in a role that you're interested in and want to learn more about. And they might be able to give you advice about if you're trying to go for a role like mine at ABC, you want to be talking about these certain things in your resume or on your LinkedIn or at an organization that you're interested in. So 3 kind of criteria there, okay? With your informational meetings, some of the basics are to start with people that you know, then start to branch out to alumni connections, to second connections, people in industry associations locally that you would like to stay in touch with. It's a really good idea with these informational interviews, and I saw 2 questions come through, so I'll answer those next. To be specific that you're asking them for time, you're not asking them to get you a job. Send them times that you can meet with them in advance, whether it's just a phone call or a Zoom meeting or in person, so that it makes it easier on them to schedule with you. And also let them know the questions that you would like to ask them in advance as well. And with each person that gives you their time in an informational interview with talking with you, always follow up and stay in touch with them. And you can even ask them, is it okay if I stay in touch with you? And if so, what's the best way for me to do that? Is it email? Is it LinkedIn? I would love to just kind of keep you posted on my search if that's okay with you. So we've got 2 questions here. So number 1, do you have any advice for approaching each new job application when I didn't get any feedback from the previous ones? I don't know if my resume didn't make it past the computer system, if I don't have the right keywords, or if someone else was qualified. So it's hard to know, understandably, totally get it, how to improve it for the next application. This is where I would leverage and use AI each time, because that can help you understand if you have the right keywords in there or not. So definitely use the computer systems and tools to scan your resume to get a sense of that. Um, the other thing that I would say as well is if there is someone that you can contact there to ask for some feedback, that would be helpful too. But at the end of the day, just bottom line, you're not always going to know what the answer is. The best we can do is make sure we've got the right keywords, look at the job description, and make sure that you have touched on every single thing that is listed in the job description somewhere in your resume and LinkedIn. You can try to ask them for feedback, but outside of that, if they don't respond, you're not going to know. So unfortunately, this is kind of how job searching is. You can do your best on your end to kind of control for things. You could even get feedback from people who work in your industry or who work at the companies that you might be looking at and applying to, get their input on it too. But outside of that, if you don't get an answer from them, it is hard to know. Just do your best as on your end as much as you can. Another person asks, when you connect with new people, do you always send a note or how do you introduce yourself? So we have a whole process that we coach people on to help them walk through the informational interview process, kind of step by step. Basically, as a starting point to kind of answer this question, I would always send a note and I would introduce myself using my elevator speech, how I found out about them, and letting them know that I'm looking for time over the phone with them and like 10 or 15 minutes of their time to just ask them questions about how to put my best foot forward in my job search. That's a good way to try to get in front of them. And our final slide before we get to Q&A here, and I'll leave both of this and the chat box up, is to make sure that you have a plan in place so that you know what your schedule is for each week and each day to approach your search. And we did this poll here already, so we're good to go there. Set a schedule for yourself that's daily and weekly. Stay organized by creating an Excel spreadsheet where you know where you've applied, who you followed up with, who said yes or no, and track your networking efforts in that Excel spreadsheet as well. Make sure that your voicemail is up to date. Make sure that you have a professional looking signature line in your email address that you're using to apply to jobs and connect with people. And make sure you practice a lot of self-care as well. Get support with this along the way. So this is what we do, obviously, all day, every day through our coaching services. And in addition to getting the slides, please feel free to contact us. We always do a free consult with people in order to explain our services, find out if we're the right fit for you, etc. And do let me know that you heard about us through TCU because we do give a discount to alumni, just by the way. We've got another couple of questions that have come through and I'll answer those. If you have any other questions, please feel free to go ahead and put those into the Q&A or in the chat box now. We've got some good and helpful links in the chat box right away already. And if you would, take out your pen and paper before we go today as we're doing Q&A and write down one action step that you will take in the next week. We would love for you to do that and share that with us in the chat box as well. That helps with accountability too. One person said, which is exactly true, you only have a limited enough number of messages unless on LinkedIn, unless you have premium. We actually do recommend that job seekers, people who are looking for a new job, do invest in LinkedIn Premium. Number one, it gives you a lot of great resources and it can enhance your search enormously, in addition to giving you more messaging options. And number two, you can get your first month free And then if you don't sign up for the paid service right away, they'll usually send you a coupon code so you can get a discount even on your second month. So in order to get additional messaging and other things, we do recommend premium. You can always turn it off after your search, and it's for the price that it is, I believe, I could be wrong, but I think it's about like $40, give or take. To me, in my opinion, it's definitely worth it. And the same person said they're going to update their LinkedIn profile, which is great. Another question that came through is there an AI platform that is better than others for resume and LinkedIn assistance? I like using ChatGPT, but another one that we will like to use, and I wonder if I can type my answer in here. Another one that we tend to like is called resumeworded.com. That's one that we tend to like as well, that is an AI generated or software, if you will, online that you can use to help you with both your resume and LinkedIn too. These are really good questions. Thank you everyone for asking these so far. This is awesome. Please share before we go any other questions that you have and any other action steps that you might want to share as well. Reminder to look out for the recording automatically. You can get the slides using the QR code here. I'd be happy to talk with you about how we can help you further in your search, because honestly, yes, we do pay for our services, but we give you things that you can't find on the internet for a reason. Like there are definitely things you can do to get in front of people and stand out. And as we're waiting for any other questions, Diana, do you have anything that you would like to announce or say, or questions that you'd like to put out there before we go?
I did get two questions. So I guess I'll start off with those. How much time should I spend crafting my elevator speech?
We would say, and this is a good one, we would say that you want to give yourself a good, like, not all in one sitting necessarily, but like a good hour or two. Unless you're like, okay, I got something great from ChatGPT, AI, I've already been thinking about this. It could be like 30 minutes. It doesn't have to take that long. But my point is, it's good to write a draft for yourself, practice it with some people, and then work on it over time too to kind of finalize it so it feels really good for you. And we have some questions come through, Diana, if it's okay if I go ahead and do those. Okay. What if your previous employer was toxic? How would you tell a potential employer why you were let go? The best kind of short and sweet answer, it depends on the situation why you were let go, but if it was because they were toxic and for some reason it wasn't like the right work environment for you, I might just say something along like, it wasn't the best place for me to be able to be long term. There weren't, there weren't opportunities for advancement, and it wasn't exactly the right work environment for me. I would say something like that. If there's more advice and specifics that you need to cover, happy to do like a coaching session with you too. But I would say something along those lines, like not the best work environment for me. I wanted to find a place that would be a really good match and fit. Um, Good. Glad that helped you. Two questions. Tips for handling LinkedIn while still employed. Yeah, so just don't put that banner of open to work. Have it be you're open to employers and recruiters contacting you, but privately, not with the public swoosh banner that you can put on there. Number two is tips on if you're applying to different types of roles. LinkedIn is generic, but tailored, but you can tailor your resume and cover letter. With LinkedIn, you want to genericize your profile just a little bit more, for lack of a better way to say it, in order to cover those different types of roles that you're looking for. And then obviously tailor your resume and cover letter for each specific job. And another question, which is a good one, how do you avoid getting burnt out on applying to jobs? I totally get this, which is why I'm saying that. It can get really overwhelming to do this. And this is where the self-care comes into play, where it's really important for you to set a schedule for yourself every single day where you include breaks and you're not job searching and you're doing other things. But you have a schedule where you've got your content ready to go, and you're organized in an Excel spreadsheet so that you can just pop that open and you know what you need to do for that day. This makes it easier for you to stay on track with things, but also not feel like, okay, I'm sitting down again and I have to reinvent the wheel to work on this yet again. Having a spreadsheet with a plan in it helps enormously. Okay, so Diana, what was the last question before we go that you had?
Okay, so how many informational meetings should I conduct to determine if a job would be a good fit for me?
Yes, so you're so welcome. I love the kudos. Thank you for that. Really appreciate it. Um, I would try to have at least, like, if you're not currently working, let's say, a goal of like one new informational meeting every single day would be fantastic. I know that may feel like a lot, but it's almost like that. I don't want to say it's an urban legend because I've heard this before from people and it's true, but where people will say, take a new person out to lunch every single day, working day of the month, and you'll get a new job a lot faster than you would otherwise. Treat informational interviews in that same way. So if you can have like 5 a week or even more than that, you're going to be in good shape and you'll get something quicker. Did that answer, Diana?
So,
Okay, good. Because I felt like I forgot what the question was a little bit as I was answering, so just wanted to be sure. All right, good. I think that we're at the end of time for today, and I just really thank you all so much for being here and for your really thoughtful questions. Greatly appreciate that. And Diana, anything closing that you want to say before we go?
yeah, thank you again for another wonderful webinar session. I know this will be very helpful for a lot of people that are getting laid off or just wondering what to do with their careers. But yeah, like Hallie said, we'll be sending out a follow-up email with a recording of today's session. We appreciate all of you guys' time, and thank you again, Hallie. We look forward to seeing you all soon. Go Frogs.